Hi everyone, thank you for joining. My name is Protima Rodriguez and I'm the founder of True Bay India, India's first premium Ashtanga Yoga workshop and retreats organizer, bringing top international Ashtanga Yoga teachers to India since Jan 2019. Welcome to episode 4 of Conversation Beyond Asanas. Our second guests this week are David Robson and Yelena Vesic from Ashtanga Yoga Toronto. I'm going to add them on and then read out their introduction. So I'm just going to wait for David and Yelena to log on. Hi,
Hi,
David.
how are you doing?
Welcome to. I'm good, David. I'm just
Good.
going to quickly read out this introduction before I start the conversation with you and Yelena.
Sure, Yelena might be here by the time you finish that.
Okay, all right. So, David, welcome everybody. David is the director of Ashtanga Yoga Center, Toronto, Canada. David leads one of the world's largest Mysore programs outside of India, where I was very excited to practice in the summer of 2018. After completing a degree in comparative religion, David made his first trip to Mysore, India in 2002, where he initiated studies with his teacher, Sri R. Sharad Joyce. Since then, he has returned annually to deepen and enrich his practice and teaching, and since 2007 has been an authorized level 2 teacher. David met Sharadji in Montreal on one of Sharadji's world tours, and that made him make his first annual trip to India, first with Lino in Kerala and then on to Mysore. David has a graduate degree in comparative religion from the University of Toronto with an emphasis on the psychology of religion. Yelena escaped war along with her family and fled to Canada from Sarajevo. She was a ballet dancer for many years and left her PhD to study and teach yoga full-time with David as his assistant and co-teacher at AYCT. So thank you, David, for joining and welcome. And we're going to wait for Yelena. Hi.
Hi, sorry.
You're just in time. Welcome. How are you guys?
We're good. How are you?
I'm good.
Thanks.
Unfortunately, we never got to have you in Bombay because by then the lockdown and the pandemic hit all of us.
Yeah, it was close though. We almost made it.
Yeah, it was like really close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So jumping right in because we've got a whole ton of questions. So basically, what we're going to do is, we're just going to go beyond asanas, which is trying to figure out both of your backgrounds, how you both got into yoga, how you all met, take a couple of questions which viewers have already emailed me. And the last 10 minutes, we take some live questions before Instagram cuts us out at the 60-minute mark. So I'm going to jump right in. So tell me, both of you, about your growing up years.
You want to go first?
Sure. So I grew up in Sarajevo, which is now a capital in Bosnia, but it was former Yugoslavia that I was born and raised. And I lived there till I was 9 years old. And I have a sister, and it was...
Who's pregnant right now?
Yeah, who's pregnant with her second baby.
She knows everything.
Yeah. So she's due very soon. Yeah. And like had an incredible childhood. Started skiing when we were 4. We were doing swimming lessons, karate, like anything you can think of. But I always wanted to be a ballet dancer. but I was too young to start ballet at a national level back home. You have to be in grade 5. And so then the Civil War started, and my mom, my sister, and I, after 4 months of the war going on, realized that we have to leave because men weren't allowed to leave the country. So we fled and we went to Serbia, where my mom's sister lives. And, we all thought this was going to be just like a month thing, but it turned out to be 4 years of people just killing each other. And it was horrible. My dad, over time, months at a time, we didn't know where he was, but he managed to escape. And he then kind of was living in Croatia because that's also where we had family, and he took that as an opportunity to work on the boat so he could hide, because certain parts of Croatia, the northern part of Croatia, wasn't as hit as badly by the war. And to shorten the story, in 1996, my parents both applied to come to Canada and got accepted. And in 1996, in November, we as a family met in Zurich and then flew here to Canada, which would have been, I was 13 years old when I came.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I've been living in Canada. I'm 36 now, so I've been living in Canada longer than I've lived back home, but back home is back home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's sort of like a short version.
Okay, and since David, okay.
I'm back. I'm just trying to plug in my phone.
The phone's gonna
Yeah,
maybe.
it's
okay.
Yeah.
So David grew up in Toronto completely.
Close to Toronto, yeah. Actually,
Yeah, it's gonna try.
fairly traumatic experience as well in my childhood. I grew up in Brampton.
You grew up in Brampton. Okay.
I don't like to overshadow Yelena's.
You didn't escape any war to get from Brampton to Toronto.
No, but it was pretty bad. It was, yeah.
All those parking lots and
Yeah.
Taking the subway.
No subway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just outside of Toronto, and yeah, it was fairly. Well, I guess maybe it was a strange childhood because it was just at the beginning of the 70s when I was born, and everybody was kind of mixed up from the 60s still. My father had been a Catholic priest before.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had gone to the seminary. It's very involved to become a priest, and then ended up being a missionary in Guatemala, and then realized there that he didn't want to be a priest. And he came back and went into social work. And it was when he was a social worker he met my mom, who was living in a town out in northern Ontario, northern Canada. And then they got together and started up a group home, which is like for kids that are in transitional sort of situations between homes. So when I was born, I had a bunch of foster brothers in the house living there, and it was pretty. I was very young. I don't remember it that much, but a strange environment. Mm-hmm. And then some of them stuck around as I grew up. So I had some foster brothers kind of coming in and out of my life in the first 10 years. And then I guess I was fairly normal in school, and I went to a private school for a long time, a private Christian school, I guess influenced by my father's decisions. And then as soon as I could make my own decisions, I left that and went to a public school. And I was never athletic like Yelena, at least not for a while. When I got to be around 9, I started judo.
Oh.
Yeah, which is a lot of grappling, throwing people around, very much like assisting. I think it set me up for assisting, and I did that for a bunch of years. And then when I got into my teens, and I sort of became more interested in girls and music and stuff, I stopped doing judo. and yeah, and had a bunch of dark years probably growing up in my teens, and I did a lot of traveling. I traveled through Europe backpacking back when people did that, and through Latin America, and eventually decided I had to settle down and be a bit more focused. You know,
that realization happened at the top of some
top of a mountain.
mountain
I
in
was
South America,
on
right?
a psychedelic, yeah.
In
mean,
those long lost dark years.
yeah. It's kind of one of the culminations. One of them. I I mean, all those years I was really interested in my own version of mysticism. You know, which I was interested in human potential and the experience of God and whatever, you know, that meant. And I was chasing those experiences, but they were becoming very entangled in sort of partying, you know, and it became hard to after a while to kind of separate them completely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know, my austerities kind of turned into vices in some ways, you know, like and my explorations, like they kept being knocked over, or my yeah, I had these aspirations for enlightenment, you know, but I kept getting sucked down all these different holes of sort of it, I guess, addiction or darkness, or, you know, or just being taken over by my situations. And so I realized I needed structure on this mountain under the influence of a drug, and immediately went back to Toronto and enrolled in university. And I thought, well, I'll use the academy as a way of focusing, you know, of learning how to focus and stick with the questions, and it worked actually. It just took me a couple of years to kind of get everything out of my system, and that's when I started doing yoga, Shivananda style yoga.
So tell me, you know, you mentioned that your dad was a Catholic priest before he met your mom. Was religion part of, did he try and impose, was he dogmatic about the religion? What made you, you know, seek mysticism, spirituality, and eventually land up doing, you know, a degree in comparative religion? Can you explain how, you know, what was religion like growing up for you, and what prompted you to want to go and study comparative religion?
Yeah, it's strange actually. My dad did not push any kind of dogma onto us, and in fact, he had turned away from the church completely.
Okay.
He never went to church.
Okay.
His family remained very religious. His mother, my grandmother, she lived in the basement of a huge cathedral of a church, doing the laundry for the priests there. So we would visit her, and on the weekends, and I would like play in this cathedral, and so it was around me. And then they sent me to a Christian school, but it wasn't even a Catholic school. It was very different type of Christianity, and I think it was more just for the quality of the education and less about religion. So I don't know. I mean, I can't say that he didn't have an influence that way, or there wasn't some kind of influence, but it wasn't overt. I think I have a theory that for a lot of us, our interest now, or I guess Joseph Campbell, you know, was describing what we're all doing in religion as mythical and our own individual quest, you know, the heroic quest and all that. And so I remember Star Wars being very strong influence when I was a kid. And when Yoda showed up on the scene, I was like, aha, I want what Yoda's giving. I want that, you know. And so it sounds kind of trite, but I do think George Lucas, when he was writing Star Wars and coming up with those ideas, he was tapping into that deeper philosophy of George Campbell, and George Campbell was describing this drive that we all have. Joseph, what did I say?
George.
Oh, George, Joseph, yeah.
Okay. So, so what prompted you to go and study comparative religion? Why comparative religion?
But I wanted to keep circling the question of God, and I wanted to sort of maintain my search for enlightenment, but I wanted to know how people did it. And I thought religion is the way. Religion is how, and I was less interested in all the different religions themselves, but more in what underlies it, you know, that because they're all built around this fundamental mystical experience. And then all religions kind of grow out of us trying to recreate that experience, that conversation with God. And then you get all the dogma and everything that is actually just all initially about directing people back towards that experience. So I wanted to kind of, I thought that that would be a way for me to stay on the question, on the topic, you know. But as I was doing that, I realized that I didn't really want to study it. I wanted to practice it.
So that eventually led you to a Sivananda class.
Yeah.
And then a Bikram yoga class.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever was showing up. I mean, Bikram yoga now, I mean, but I was just trying whatever showed up in Toronto that I could find. And so I was just trying all these different approaches. And I wasn't even, when I went to Shivananda, I wasn't looking for any kind of asana practice, you know?
It was just fitness.
No, yeah, I was looking for meditation. I was still looking for peace, you know, some kind of, because I was still very turbulent. And yeah, it started me on that path. And I didn't realize that I wanted to be on that path exactly, but as I was doing that, then I fell more in love with just the practice of yoga and learning about it over the study of you know, religion. And also I found it much easier, I have to say. Being an academic, I found very taxing. Like not in a bad sense. I think it made me a better person, and but I found it so hard compared to the idea of just showing up on my mat every day and doing these exercises and sitting, and, you know.
So what prompted you? How did you figure out that Sharatji was in Montreal? How did you land up there?
I was doing the same thing with Ashtanga that I was doing with the other stuff. I was teaching Bikram yoga at that point, and then I was going to different classes around the city, trying out different styles of yoga. And so Ashtanga was one of the ones being offered, or some, you know, version of Ashtanga. And I was reading blogs online, you know, about all the different kinds of styles, and I really was interested in Ashtanga. I was reading a lot about it. And then Darby hosted, Mark Darby. Yeah, in Montreal, hosted Pattabhi Jois, Guruji, and Shratji. And so I went because that's what we were, that community in Toronto that was interested, everybody went to Montreal to have that experience. And Pattabhi Jois was doing a class in the morning, like a lead class, primary series. And then Shratji was doing an evening Mysore. So I was doing both. I would go in the morning and do the primary, and doing evening. I was young. And so I got to experience Sharat's teaching, and Sharat's my age, so back then he was younger too, and very much in his practice, very deep in, and I guess he didn't have all those responsibilities that he has now.
Yeah.
And he said, "Come to Mysore." So I said,
you took it up.
Yeah. And I was just finishing my undergrad, so it timed perfectly, you know.
So which year did you meet him in Montreal? You landed up in Mysore in 2002?
That was 2002 in the fall. Yeah.
Oh, so the same year you landed up in Mysore.
Yeah. I guess I went to Kovalam first, and then I went up to Mysore. So I went to Kovalam in late November, and then went to Mysore.
So what was your first experience of India? Give me a funny story.
Well,
I'm sure that's done.
This is also like a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
2000, so 18 years ago. So I had traveled a lot already, but I was kind of blown away when I got to India. It was a big difference for me. I had never been sort of to the east, so it was a shock, actually, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
But I also loved it. I felt immediately at peace in India. I don't know why, but I felt like very comfortable. And I mean, back then too, you know, they were still doing the STD phone booths. You know, I didn't have a cell phone. And
STD is
yeah,
is not
yeah.
what everybody else thinks STD is.
Yeah. And yeah, but you could possibly get one in one of those phone booths. And it was a bit more of a different experience back then. Now traveling has become very homogenous everywhere.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I found it very, I don't know, exotic, I guess. Like it was fun. I had a lot of fun. And you know, yeah, I stayed 6 months that first trip, and I just sunk right in. I mean, I started wearing lungis, you know, and all the typical
Yeah,
stuff.
I have this picture of you, which I'm just gonna try and pop up on this. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Actually, I think I'm wearing.
Wait, he's wearing exact same one right now. Like this is, he lives in it.
Yeah.
He has like many different ones, but this is the one that's like I'm always washing it, and it's always like as soon as it's dry, it's like back on him.
Yeah, I have like 8 or
Yeah.
9 of them in the drawer. Yeah,
Wow.
it's kind of
Okay.
fun.
Yeah.
I still feel a strong affinity for India. You know, I like to be there. Yeah, I just, like I said, I just feel very comfortable there.
So how did you both meet?
He was my teacher.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
how did you land up in AYCT?
I've been so I was a ballet dancer, as I mentioned earlier, and I did it till like my early mid-20s, and I taught ballet and I danced it. And I remember I was like maybe around 18 when one of my friends said, we should go and try yoga. Like they say it's good for the body and it's gonna help us relax. And so I went with her. We did our first class, which actually, funny enough, was at David's very, very old studio. But David wasn't teaching this class. And it turns out that my very first yoga class was Ashtanga class, a lead class.
Ashtanga based.
Ashtanga based, like inspired lead class. And I just remember sort of coming back to my breath. Like, I just remember that that peacefulness that happened. I wasn't, you know, I was born and raised atheist. I still think I identify very much as atheist. But so my first experience of yoga was to come and find that peace of mind, like relaxation. It wasn't sort of David right from the start was seeking that spiritual, that magical kind of a experience. And I just loved it. I just loved how it made me feel. And then I would go almost regularly every Sunday. You know, as a dancer, it becomes very easy for you to add just another, like, you know, you're so disciplined. So like, okay, every Sunday is going to be my time to relax and kind of regain control over my body.
Disciplined about relaxation.
Yeah, disciplined about relaxation. And so I would, so I started practicing different styles of yoga. Like it wasn't, you know, just different studios, whoever offered any kind of a discount, any of this stuff, kind of just experimenting. And not very much reading about any of it, just experimenting. But then when I decided to kind of walk away from ballet and be done with it, it was very interesting. I just automatically switched to yoga. And so I remember like stopping one and then just switching to the other, and it just became like 4 times a week right away. And then it slowly increased to where I was going like 5-6 times a week. Again, very unstructured at first, just random places. Like, but then I started leaning constantly and coming back to when there was like an Ashtanga class being taught at these studios. And I eventually met one of the teachers, was David's former student. And he kept saying, and he taught very traditional Sanskrit count, up to Navasana, And then because I was regularly coming, he got me to start doing dropbacks, and he would assist me. And then he started saying, like, you need to come to the studio, like you need to come to a traditional studio so you can learn this. And that's when I started reading about yoga and started reading about Ashtanga. And so at first I was really scared because I couldn't comprehend the idea of like Mysore and you're doing your own practice, and it's not the memorizing. I can memorize stuff as a dancer, but I was like, I'm gonna be so bored, and every day same thing. Like, even though like I was already coming like exclusively almost for Ashtanga classes. And so I eventually made a switch in like late 2009. I switched to the studio and never went back anywhere else. I remember coming in, trying Mysore, and was like, this is it, you know. And what drew me to Ashtanga was the discipline of it. And maybe it's something that comes very naturally to me, being from like Eastern
because you were
Europe.
already
Yeah. Like, you know, just in ballet too, like there's all these rules, there's all these things how you move. There's always a teacher that's in charge and holding the room, and you know, in ballet it's for the performance, so it's very different, but in some ways like the underlying structure of how you learn and how you grow is very, very similar. And so in 2009 I sort of started coming more or less regularly, but really as of 2010 I was like traditional 6 times a week, and all this meanwhile doing my master's and then eventually PhD. And yoga played a really important component in like trying to like quiet my mind with all the craziness of being in academia and writing my, at the time, master's dissertation, and then later on PhD stuff. And so yeah.
What were you doing? What was your thesis on?
My master's thesis was on political ecology, and basically to kind of sum it up, it was looking at how politics and ecology come together and how they influence the decisions that are made around how we preserve and protect certain areas and certain lands. But in particularly, I was interested in how the Canada's Indigenous people contribute or are left out of the conversation when it comes to making these decisions. So looking at the political ecology with the social justice or social injustice lens as a part of it. And so that was my master's. And then in my PhD, I quit my PhD after a little bit over 4 years, but it was political science, and it was kind of looking through Marxist lens at oppression and subjugation of Canada's Indigenous people as a result of colonialism, and how has that played out to today's violence and injustice towards Indigenous in Canada.
So you didn't complete it, and you went full-time into yoga, correct?
Yeah. All the meanwhile, I was practicing Ashtanga, and after 4 years, I decided to quit and switch. And quitting came in for 2 reasons. It came because there was this like really strong pull towards yoga and towards teaching yoga. And since I was 16, I've been teaching. When I was 16, I started teaching ballet. And so I've been teaching ballet. And then when that stopped, eventually, once I got into my master's, my professor actually got me to start teaching in my 2nd and 3rd year of master's. And then for the 4 years in PhD, I was teaching, I was TAing all the time. And so it was like an interesting transition. I remember sitting in the office, and, you know, I had office hours and the students are coming in and talking to me, but I would like shut the door a little bit because I wanted to read. I would find a researcher in me just kind of switched and started researching and reading everything and anything I could find about yoga and mindfulness and social justice. I remember reading a lot about mindfulness and social justice, and how these two inform each other. And so, and then the second part, or second reason why I decided to quit, I started not seeing academia as a place where you could make a difference. Because as part of my research as a master and then as a PhD student, I was going and working with the First Nations communities in Canada a lot and spending a lot of time there. And it was really heartbreaking to go into these communities and see how we're in Canada, and yet when you walk into these reserves, it is a totally different world. And what has happened to these people. So I started to lose faith that it is through academia, you know, me sitting behind like my Mac and writing something would contribute to a change. Yeah. Which of course it does, because I was educating students, I was making students question things, you know, you write papers, of course it does. And I think academia is so, so important, but I lost faith in it. And so I switched to teaching yoga then. After this would have been, I started teaching in 2014, and in 2015 I quit my PhD.
Okay, so I'm keeping a tab on the time, so I have to now skip my questions and come to the questions viewers have asked me in the interest of time. I'm going to try and ask you one question, Yelena, because I've been, you know, I'm going to show this clip to everybody before I ask this question. Just a second.
Yeah. Mr. Connie.
Oh, this is, oh, he's playing with the toy. Good. I thought he had a pillow.
This to me represents, you know, I mean, how have you managed to practice through that? It is, you know, it's you know, I mean, it's everything which a yoga teacher is, you know, what you imagine yoga to be, a yoga teacher to be doing, right? With candles and all of that. But this is the opposite of that. So how are you able to find your calm and want to not scream while your husband is yapping in the background, the dog is all over you, and two kids, and then the neighbor thumps the floor? How are you finding your peace in that?
You know, for me, that's the easiest way to find peace. The more there's like chaos and stuff happening around me, the easier it is for me to pull inwards. And I think maybe that's part of like just being in ballet since I was like 13 years old, because as any performer, like, you know, so many like research has been done on performers where it's shown that they do go in a total meditative, like it's not intentional, but the meditation happens. Like they've done so many studies with pianists too, like where at some point they don't remember the notes. It's not that they're actively pulling what they're doing, but they're just going into this. And so I think that's what happens to me too. Like when there's dogs are always like such a welcome interruption for me. Like they're like little sparks of joy that really make you like giggle and smile when you're on your mat. And then my stepkids running around too. It's just like a way to pull in. And so I really don't see it as like a distraction or as an obstacle or.
It's funny though, because it's a way, it's pulling in, but it's not ignoring. Like Yelena's not like trying to ignore everybody and just do what she's doing. She actually interacts with the dogs, and she's so that it's actually about really integrating and still maintaining that path, you know?
Focus.
Which is different, right? If someone's just trying to block it out, it gets a little bit rigid, because
then you become like
then
you're just going to pick up your mat and walk away. That I think that's like one of the most inspirational videos I've seen, because I think you know, I think that I've put it up multiple times, in fact, on stories, because through the lockdown, because a lot of people kept saying, I don't have inspiration to practice, and most people are stuck at home with their husbands and kids. And, in India, we were a bit of a spoiled lot. So none of us had our mates coming in. So people were doing, the housework.
Yeah.
And so people were like, you're not finding inspiration, or there's no space to practice. And I would keep putting up your video and say, hey, she's practicing through this,
Yeah.
So I think that was, I think that actually represented real yoga going on, in a real situation. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's just really important not to get rigid about the practice, like, because that will suck all the joy out of it. And joy, in a sense, like it's not going to be always joyful. And I'm very vocal about practice not being joyful, and it's not meant to be. But if you become so rigid that everything has to be this way and that way, and no one can look at you and no one can do this, then it kind of like that it becomes over controlling. And that over controlling about the practice, I think, never comes from like a genuine place within you. I think it comes from a place of I'm expected to. And I think that will always break us, and not in a good way, like not in like cracking us open so we can be better, do better, but like literally break us with so much anger and resentment. So yeah, I think we have to take it lightly and like always see humor in it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to the questions. Anita from London asks, David, is Ashtanga a cult?
We researched this.
It actually is, yeah. In the strict definition of being a cult, absolutely it is, yeah.
Totally.
But I mean, so is Christianity, and so is, in terms of religion, these are all cults. We have certain rites and rituals that surround a particular approach. So, but she's probably asking, is it in the sense of like a Manson family kind of, or are we giving up our free will or something like that?
Surrender to a point where, yeah.
Yeah, right. So is it negative in that sense? No, it obviously not. I mean, I always say it's a poorly organized cult. Like.
But Christianity is an organized cult too.
It is, yeah, it is very much organized. And then there's all these different sort of sects, right? Which are they get more focused and more organized, and some of them are pyramids too, right? That drive power and money all to an apex, like a leader or something like that. And so there are aspects of that in every organization, right? Business and religion, like the idea of organization. So yeah, in that sense, it does tick a lot of the boxes of being a cult. But I would say that no one is asking anyone to give up their free will. It's a very we're spread around the world. It's completely voluntary. It's a lot of work, for us to be able to maintain our practice. So we have to choose it all the time. No one is enforcing it. No one's depriving us of protein, though we do recommend a vegan diet. We're not trying to do tricks to manipulate people into donating more or anything like that. So in that sense, no, it's not that kind of cult.
No.
Which brings me, if you can at any point choose not to answer a question I ask you, but I think in 2011 you were not on the list.
That's funny.
So
yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, for sure.
Can you talk about that?
Okay.
Sorry, I had to ask that.
No, it's okay. It's interesting. Good question. Well, I wonder I don't know if it'll get me, if this becomes like political or not, but there's a rule that we have in Ashtanga, a good one, that to become an authorized teacher or a certified teacher, you need to go to India and study with our guru, with our teacher, Shrub. And this is to ascertain, to make sure that you understand parampara. You get that direct experience of the tradition. And so to be able, we have these designations now, authorized level 1, authorized level 2, and certified. So to be able to get any of those levels, you have to go and study with our master, with our teacher. And then, of course, there's all these teacher training programs everywhere. And they often say, certified, a 200-hour certificate, which is loosely, built around certified. And so we hear people say all this time, I'm certified in Ashtanga, and we're like, we've never heard of you. You're not certified in Ashtanga. Or I'm authorized to teach, and they just mean that they've done some program wherever.
100 hours
I don't know.
somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. They might be great teachers. They might not be. I have no idea, right? But that's the point. So what happened is that it's very hard business to run a shala. Everybody's having trouble all over the world running Ashtanga shalas because it's so hard to maintain a practice, right? It's not for everybody. So
it's not very consumer
yeah
oriented approach to yoga.
Yeah, because we tell people, to stop practicing at that pose, and it's kind of it's a very in some ways a very confrontational, honest practice. So so people were getting upset that it's so difficult to maintain a living teaching Ashtanga, and they were saying the reason that it's getting harder and harder is, the authorized teachers were saying, is because there's people doing teacher trainings, which is true. And they're presenting themselves as authorities in this tradition, in this practice, and they're making all this money from these trainings and pulling people away from our shalas. We can't do trainings because our teacher says not to do them. And so I agree with all those things. And what happened was that I do these trainings as well, but not teacher trainings. I do intensives where we go through the postures. Sometimes I'll teach the count. Certainly it's information every teacher should know, but also it's the information you understand as a practitioner. All of this is directed towards practitioners. And so we never give out a certificate that says you are a teacher, or that we say you can teach. But there's also a business aspect to it, and I had some people that had a shala, and they got upset with me, and they sort of misrepresented me as doing a teacher training.
Sure.
Understood.
Strategy. And so he was getting so many people complaining, and I think I was a bit of a juicy target at that point. Maybe I had some hubris. I was going around saying, we have the biggest Mysore program, because I was proud. I was very proud. So maybe it was a little knock. But one day my name disappeared off the list. But it was okay. I went to talk to Shratji, and he explained to me what he had seen or heard, and then I kind of told him my side of it, and we were okay again. And I do appreciate that is policed. I do appreciate that there's some kind of quality control. I think it's a difficult thing. It's not innate for Sharatji to do that, So he was kind of pushed towards those kinds of things, but it's kind of what we love, the tradition and everything, coming up against commercialism, and it's a difficult struggle because we want to expand Ashtanga all the time. We want more people to practice it, we want it to be popular, but we also want to maintain a certain quality of the teaching.
And we also want to make a living doing it.
And we need to make a living too. So there's a lot of double talk or double speak around offering the trainings, and it sounds like a teacher training, but it doesn't say
it's teacher. Masked as a
yeah. And so I think the difference at the end is and which you need to say at the beginning is that, look, at the end of this, we're not going to say that you're a teacher. You have to go and study in Mysore to become a teacher. You have to go through these steps. We cannot make you teachers, in that sense.
Okay. So I have time for just 2 more questions.
We have long hair.
Iram from Jeddah says she basically has 2 kids. So her question is, if your partner is a non-yogi, what advice would you give for someone who's a householder with kids and who wants to maintain a practice?
If you can find the community nearby, then you find the community and you start going there. And it's, I mean, our whole shala is filled with people like that. And it's really interesting because a lot of people like that their partners are not part of this sadhana, that the community, the practice, so the sangha is something that belongs to them and it's theirs, and it's their space where they can kind of go to, take time to reconnect, find themselves, and do their practice.
She lives in Saudi Arabia. Sorry, I just want to
interrupt. Saudi Arabia.
Saudi
okay.
Arabia. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it comes from a place of, where she loves the practice. She follows a Mysore practice, but her partner's a non-yogi and she's got kids. So she just wants to figure out what advice would you give her?
She basically just needs to figure out any point in the day what time works for her and start with like half an hour a day and crave out that time. And that could be for a lot of parents, like early in the morning before the kids wake up is usually the prime time when they can really get that quiet. For some, I know some people that do it like once they've put the kids to bed, like late in the evening. So whatever it is, but start with the small chunk of time, because it's not just about that half an hour or even hour that you're taking to do the practice. It's that everything else has to change to accommodate. And so if you have high expectations from the start and you say, well, I need an hour and a half, the changes that need to happen for that to take place are really big. But if you start with little increments of half an hour each day, and remember, practice isn't about how much of it you do, it's how steady you are each day with it. So a half an hour each day at whatever time, like whatever is the most convenient, is how you start to build the practice. And that's all, like just very simple as.
And that's the sadhana, right? In terms of abhyasa, in terms of the practice, then she's talking about tapas and being able to remember through the day that this is the path. And so that'll just play out in many choices, many small choices, right, that you make through the day.
Mm-hmm.
So is it necessary to do the whole practice?
The sadhana? Like the sequence of asanas?
Like the sequence of asanas? Like the asana practice? Like
it's important for us to make that distinction, right? The time on the mat is the sadhana that supports the practice.
The sadhana.
It's not the practice. So the sadhana is important because it strengthens your resolve. It makes you strong in your commitment to make those other choices through the day.
But is it important to do, like, to spend 1.5 hours if you don't have 1.5 hours? Is it okay to just do, say, standing postures and be okay with?
Yeah,
of course. There's nothing at the end of the 6th series. You know what I mean? There's nothing there when you get there. I mean, I imagine I'm not there, but if you did get there, then God's not waiting for you there, right? Or enlightenment isn't waiting for you there. It doesn't matter how many poses you do in that sense. You can do poses all day long and nothing might change for you. You're just staying on your mat doing exercise. So the poses are supposed to change us inside or help us commit to those changes. It's an ongoing process. But we do need that practice because it keeps us circling back each day. And it reinforces our resolve. So making that decision to carve out the half an hour or the 15 minutes is the first choice. That's the first thing you do that reminds you, okay, and now I'm going to build the rest of my day around making that same choice again. So it's kind of a rippling effect through your life.
So it's the discipline of showing up every day.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. I have an anonymous question. this person didn't want the name to be given out, so
those are always the dangerous ones.
Yeah, so you can choose not to answer these. David, you left your wife, have a 30-year-old daughter from your college days, have 2 kids with your first wife, which you and Yelena now co-parent. Did following your heart leave a lot of battle wounds from students, friends, colleagues, and family? And has it all been worth all of it?
Has it all? Wow, that's a really deep question. I mean,
that's like an hour-long answer. Really.
Yeah. Following my heart, is part of my practice as well as carrying my responsibilities and trying to balance those 2 things. Right. And it's something that I continue to do every day, to attempt to do every day. So has it been worth it? Yes. I don't think I could have. I couldn't have kept going forward in an authentic way without following my heart. Did it hurt? Yes. Does it still hurt? Sometimes. Some people, I think, now it's been a long time. It's been 5 years, and we've all done a lot of work on all sides, and certainly things are really good for my family as a whole, my whole family. Everyone is doing much better.
Is happy.
Yeah. And really, I left one relationship for another, but it impacted a lot of relationships.
Right.
And what happened, I think, in the Shala for a lot of people was that it broke an ideal in their head, which is kind of a father, mentality thing about people not changing or always being there. And in my resolve, I didn't leave anybody else except for that relationship that I was in before. But I think for a lot of people, when it happened, they felt like maybe I was leaving them. And so I did try to work hard to maintain or to help people know that I wasn't leaving anybody. That nothing else is changing for me. But of course, I had to put most of that energy into my kids. Right? So, I think everything is okay now. Everything is good. And for me, it's worth it, because I am with my love, and I have my family, I have my children, and I can still say I follow my heart. Yeah.
So what would you say to the people who, your naysayers? What would you say to them?
I have naysayers? Well, I don't know. I can't be responsible for other people's opinion in that sense. I do my best, and I'm sure my best isn't always the best, but I'm doing what I can, and I'm a human being, also trying to practice.
So how has it been co-parenting for both of you? You've spoken, Yelena, on your Instagram. That was really nice what you did. So how has it been? Has it been hard? As ultimately they're stepkids.
Yeah, or the new word is now bonus kids, right? Because there's so much that's a sort of negative association when you say step-parent, and especially stepmom. It's a very the connotations are usually negative. It's been very, very hard, and it's been very, very challenging. But it's also been rewarding, and it's been like a fun experience, and it requires constant check-in. It requires so much communication between David and I, sometimes too much, I think. And it's not easy. I've been very open about that it's not easy, but it's something, he came as a package deal. And so, when I fell in love with him, and I every day I wake up and I choose to be in love with him, then I also have to choose to be in love with these kids. And I am, but it is a lot of work, and it is very different than, if they were just David and I had kids and they were our kids, because my place is constantly negotiated between the birth parents who are, you know, both involved, both always there for the kids, which is beautiful and amazing. And I think David and his ex-wife also have a really good communication, and really do co-parent, and we talk about stuff. So it is, but it is very hard, you know. It requires a lot of time with the therapist in the office, talking about it, working it out. But I think I think that's what love is. Like, love doesn't come without work.
You sign up the whole package.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of feel like
the
this
pizza.
interview is therapy.
This interview. It's like all the triggers. Yeah. It's good. Yeah. I like this better than how do I get into but yeah.
Okay, so guys, we have 5 minutes. I missed the time, so please type in your questions, and I'm going to try and ask one quick question while, you know, one of you can type in your questions. Can you, either of you can take this question. What would you say in these times when there's no teacher, there's no shala one can go to, where, you know, you lack motivation? How do you push yourself to go deeper into a posture? How do you, you know, go, you know, a lot of times you lack motivation to, you know, you'd say, okay, I'm just going to do standing and that's it. And then you just probably stop at, you know, sun salutation. So how do you push yourself when you don't have a teacher in these times? What is it that you would say to people who are lacking motivation?
I would change the question. I would ask back, why do we need to push ourselves? Because right now our whole life is at the edge. Our nervous system is like freaking out. We're living with so much unknown, and so maybe this isn't the time to necessarily push ourselves, but this is the time to really try anchor and ground ourselves and just be mindful and say it is okay to show up and just do sun salutations, and I am good enough if I just do that.
That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah.
Okay. What I
because
found,
not everybody has the option of, you know, or the financial resources to do, say, a Mysore online, or, you know, or, you know, people in India, you know, like someone said, you know, someone's doing Mysore online at Miami Life Center. Somebody in Bombay doesn't have either the privilege or the, you know, the time zones are different. So you just have to, you know, get on the mat when time permits you. Yeah. So yeah, so that's a very interesting way that, you know, I think our mental, you know, just to ground ourselves at this point is so important.
Yeah. If you let yourself do what feels good, it'll probably lead you back to the mat, you know? Yeah. Because that's why you started in the first place. And so it might feel at first like you don't have the energy to do what you should do, but when you let yourself do what you want to do, eventually that's going to take you back to where you need to be, right? Yeah.
So somebody says, can we give poses to ourselves if we don't have a teacher? Is that a wrong method?
Well, you need a teacher. Yeah.
You need a teacher. You need someone. In order for mindfulness to happen, the structure has to come from outside of you. You know, so even when I say like ground yourself with the practice, it still means like do sun salutations as the tradition, as the parampara says, because you need the external structure to be able to start to see things within yourself and to reflect. And so it's the same thing, like you can give yourself poses and, you know, but ultimately you need to figure out and find a way to a teacher and have them be sort of that external guide for you.
For us, parampara is the structure, right? The vinyasa count. That's the structure, and there's rules inside of that count that determine when we get the next posture. Yeah. So I mean, if you understand all those rules, then that can be your structure. But usually, you need a teacher to teach them to you, right? To understand that.
So we just have a minute left. So before you go, you've broken the internet with your finger wag. So so can you do a little finger wag, because we've just got 50 seconds before Instagram cuts us out.
Oh yeah, okay. You want me to finger wag?
Yeah, you do it.
Gotta do something wrong.
Huh?
Gotta do something wrong.
No.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
I
much,
got a frown.
David.
Yeah, I got a frown.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for this
Thank you.
conversation.
This was really
I
fun.
really-
We really enjoyed it.
And we should do it again.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for taking time out. I appreciate this. And see you soon.
Yeah,
See you soon.
see you soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye.